Welcome to our next video, note, PowerPoint, whatever you want to call it. The title of this is Producing Data. That's the same as the title of our whole big first unit. We're not going to cover everything. These are just, once again, kind of the basics that we're starting off with. So when we look at producing data, we really have kind of two big ways that we find this data, that we can find information to study. One of them is what is known as an observational study. And this is where the information that we get is just from observing something. We either observe the people doing something or we observe some information that we get. The biggest thing to remember is that we don't actually try to influence anything. Some ways that we can do observational studies: we could take a survey. Okay, we're not actually making anybody do anything new or try anything. We're just asking questions. Maybe we're going to look at, a voter poll, take opinions of people. Maybe we're going to go back and we're going to look at some records somewhere. Maybe we're actually going to observe something. Sometimes, we just want to sit and observe how, these certain monkeys behave towards one another. We're not actually, exposing them, making them do anything. We're just kind of finding out some information by observing. One of the problems with observational studies is that they can be faulty. They can have confounding or lurking variables. Confounding variables we're going to talk about in a few slides, where we can't separate the effects of two variables. Lurking is sometimes something you didn't think about. You observe, you get some information, and you're like, oh, okay, well, so these two things are related. No, not really. There was something else that you didn't think about. So those are some of the problems that we can have. We can also talk about observational studies. They can either be retrospective or prospective. You can go back and look at old medical records for a certain number of years, so that would be retrospective, and we can get our information that way. Or you could say, starting today, we're going to keep records on this, and so that would be prospective. We're going into the future. The other main type of way that we collect data or produce data is by doing an experiment. Now, something is an experiment once we are actually actively imposing some sort of treatment. Okay, we're going to actually ask people to do something, or we're going to actually put a certain amount of fertilizer on the trees, something that we're actually going to impose, and then we want to see what the response is. We usually are measuring our response to a change. Experiments allow us to show cause and effect. Observational studies do not. Okay, cause and effect can only be proved with a well-designed, well-controlled experiment. Observational studies can tell us that there's some sort of a relationship, but if I want to say this causes this, or this is the effect of this, very, flat out and very straightforward, then the only way we can do that is with some sort of experiment. So that would mean that experiments are always better than observational studies, right? Not really. Sometimes we can't actually do an experiment, okay? Let's talk about, I think everybody is pretty clear on the fact that we believe that drinking alcohol while you are pregnant can have bad effects on the baby. Now, here's the problem. That's based on observational studies. Because if we were going to actually do an experiment, we would have to take a collection of pregnant women and we'd say, okay, this half, you guys over here, you need to drink every day that you're pregnant. And then you guys over here don't drink. And it just wouldn't be ethical. We know that there can be problems, and we might be bringing a bunch of, really sick or developmentally challenged babies into the world. And that's generally not considered a good idea. Same thing with smoking while you're pregnant. Okay, ladies, now you all go out and smoke 6 cigarettes a day. No, we don't do that. We're not going to actually, do that to people. There's just some situations where it would be unethical to do that. And so we use observational studies. We can have very good observational studies that give us very good data of a relationship or a connection. We just can't flat out say cause and effect.